Earlier today, we walked you through some of the integrations that make our observability solutions work better together. And we mentioned, but we didn't show you anything about the great alerting features that we have. So here, we're going to talk about and show you some of the features that we have that are going to help reduce that alert noise and get you over that other flippin' alert that you don't want and you can't use and you're not going to do anything with. And to that end, I have Brian Radovich here with me, who's going to help us with demo. Let's just jump right in. I know we have a couple of new alerting features. You know, people have been around for a while. They know we have lots of great stuff with alerts, but we want to specifically focus on some of the newer things like AlertStack. So can you show us a bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we focus on is reducing alert noise. And we have two great features. We have AlertStack and anomaly-based alerts. We'll drill into AlertStack right now. AlertStack's available to everyone that owns a module. So HCO, NPM, SAM, whatever you've got AlertStack. So great. And so what AlertStack is it is basically correlation. So it's looking at all the alerts that you've already defined. So all the work that you've already put into building up your alerts. And it is using the information that you've defined, the relationships or the ones that we've created automatically to be able to put these alerts together into clusters. So again, it's correlation, not causation, but the ability to pull all of that information that you would normally go and do yourselves. An alert would come in and you would look at that entity and look at the related entities and which ones were having alerts and do all of that work manually. We're doing all that automatically now. The great thing is that this is happening in the background as the alerts are coming in. Automatically, the clusters are created, so you can see cluster numbers here. And they're maintained over time. So once the cluster starts, as the alerts change status, they will record that. And we see that here in the charts, and we'll dig into this in just a minute. Also, you can automatically have these clear themselves out. So if an alert comes up, the cluster will be created after a certain amount of time. The clusters can go down by themselves. But I'm going to go ahead and drill into a simple one. This has a couple of entities in it. And this is just a web transaction going down. And what we'll be able to see is drill down into this set of alerts. We can see when they're occurring. So this is minute by minute here. We can drill in on a specific time if we want to. We can see the relationships of these different entities. And this is where, everything was read. And we can see that that's reflected in the next time period. We can see, again, that the information here that this login event, failed basically. And it was trying to talk to this server over here, the East Data Center. And you can see a little bit more information here. You can see the entities and the child entities of what's happening. The really great thing is if I want to take action on this, right, I've got a couple of things. One is I can actually clear this cluster out, right? So if I decide like, hey, this event's finished or I'm not interested in this, I don't need to track this cluster, I can close it. But I can also create a incident here. And you can see the integrations that are available. We have ServiceNow and SolarWinds Service Desk. So again, the great thing is like you can go in and once you've looked at the cluster and decide, hey, this is a real problem that we need to track and fix, you can push that right into your help desk and manage it from there. If you clear it, it can also clear the cluster, which also clears all of the associated alerts. So this is not like I have to clear the cluster and then go to each alert and clear it. When I clear the cluster, it also acknowledges and clears all of the alerts that you have. So it's really a handy feature. Again, it is doing aggregation. If we go back real quick and look at all clusters, we can dig into something with a little bit more in terms of the number of entities. So I'm going to do this by entity count. And so this will bring up some entities that have a lot more than just two. And again, it'll show us the history here of when the alerts were occurring, how severe they got, and, did they stop? And we can drill into one of these. I'll go in here where there's a little bit more activity. All right, so you can see this one is much more complex. We've got a lot of different items down here. You see these little purple dots here? That means there's more information and we can drill in. And I know that's tiny and really hard to see, so we'll drill into that. But you can see here, alert me when a transaction step goes into a warning or a critical state. And then if we actually wanted to drill down into that alert, we could do that. And of course, it's going to show that it's green right now, but back when that happened, and we'll see that in the history, you can actually see the history here. It was okay at 9:42. At 5:12, it went to the critical state. It looks like something was executed, and it went back to the green state at some point. Again, but that's the general idea, is like you can look across all of these alerts going on, and it puts the story together for you and then makes it really easy to manage the story as a whole.
I really love that this is a great example of like the evolution of the technology and the platform over time, right? You can see we are using the intelligent mapping as part of this. We're clearly using the relationship building that we've built over the years, and kind of being able to show all those things are related and reduce some of the guesswork of like, oh, well, I think this is on this database over here. Let me go figure out if that's related. I think there was maybe we were doing a monitor on the web transaction step. Instead of you having to go all those separate places on your own, it puts it all in one place for you to look at a lot more quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Using those relationships, the topological information, putting together those alerts into a cluster. And again, a lot of the cognitive load that our users had in the past, and this really shortens the time frame to do all of that and lets you see the picture holistically and decide how you want to take action on this. Maybe you can ignore it. Maybe you want to create a help desk ticket on that and get that fix going. But again, it does a lot of the heavy lifting that before you would have to sort of sort through and filter through all of those alerts coming in and decide, what's important and how is it all related. This makes it much simpler.
Yeah, I definitely feel like if you're investigating one of these clusters, and it'll be easier to spot when something's missing as well, where there's a gap in your monitoring where you're like, oh, you know what, we should have known this other thing was involved here. And now you can go add that to your monitoring just a little bit quicker than doing like a full audit of everything that you're monitoring. Well, that's great. And you said AlertStack was available for module-based customers as well as for our self-hosted observability solution. But let's talk a little bit about the anomaly-based alerting.
Anomaly-based alerts is a HCO exclusive feature. It's also available in our SaaS, but for, in terms of the on-prem monitoring, this is an HCO advanced only feature. How this works is we're basically connecting to our SaaS. The SaaS has all of the, let's say, magic in it. It does the anomaly detection. It does the 21-day seasonality, all those types of things. And those since those are in the cloud, those anomalies, detection capabilities are being advanced all the time. So they get better and better depending on, what we're supporting and what we're focusing on. But the idea is that you don't have to update your code to take advantage of the improvements that we're making in the cloud. But what you do is you connect up your instance of HCO to the cloud through our technology called Platform Connect. That will start to push some of the information that we have, not all of it, but some of it, things like CPU, memory, response time, packet loss. We do that for hosts. We do that for network devices. We do it for VMware, VMs and hypervisors now, which are all kind of listed here. But it puts it up there and it starts analyzing the data and determining, with that 21-day seasonality, when you're having anomalies, right? Now, we just don't throw that back to you, right? Just say, oh, here's an anomaly. Right. So what you do there is you are able to build an anomaly-based alert. That's what the feature is called. And what that does is it combines both the status of the metric that you're monitoring, so CPU, memory, packet loss, whatever it is, along with a threshold that you set. Now, some people call this dynamic thresholding. We call it anomaly-based alerts. But the idea is basically you're combining two things, both when you're having an anomaly and what you think is important as a alert. So again, it allows you to really focus on the things that you think are important. Hey, if my CPU on Saturday is at 40%, it's normally at 20%, I may not care. I need it to be over 80% before I get a warning. But that's the kind of power that it brings. Again, sort of bringing both the machine learning and the machine intelligence alongside of your experience and understanding of your environment and putting those two things together to build alerts. The other really great thing that this does is it actually tracks when it doesn't alert you, right? So that's the noise reduction is one of the big things. And the idea is that not only are we reducing the noise, we're also tracking how much we're reducing the noise. So in order for these alerts to be triggered, they have to both be an anomaly and pass your threshold.
Yeah, I really love that feature as well, the noise reduction. It's fun to see, how much time you're saving, how much inbox space you're saving, really, on getting these alerts, right? You could have received, X amount of more alerts than you would have received without anomaly-based alerting. And I want to highlight a couple of things you brought up there. One of which was that there's now the virtual stuff has been added. That's only in the latest release. So if you previously used anomaly-based alerting and you tried it out when we first came out with it, now you can expand that to your virtual infrastructure as well. And another thing that you brought up was seasonality. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, what is seasonality?
So seasonality is the ability to look at a metric over time and start to build a forecast into the future based on what's happened in the past. But the forecast is, they call it seasonality because it's looking at the patterns over time. So it's looking at, hey, what's happening every Monday at 1 p.m., right? And looking historically and say, okay, well, this is the general behavior we see at this time. If it isn't that, then it's an anomaly.
I really love how you brought up several terms that have been in the products for a long time, dynamic thresholds for our baselines and all of that. And this just goes to show that our product teams are working so hard to continue to expand those and apply machine learning and apply things that we're learning as we go to make them even better and stronger and continuing that into the future.
Yeah, absolutely. The goal of this is, to continue to expand the data that we can do anomalies on, and then also to bring to bear, features as they appear in our SaaS. So if we do root cause analysis, if we start to do forecasting on resources, all of that would eventually be available in HCO as well. I'll go ahead and drill down on this one. This one looks interesting. I've got 44% noise reduction. This is a CPU. I drilled into a CPU critical alert. So again, this is combining basically saying that, hey, my CPU is having an anomaly and it's crossing a threshold. So if we're looking at this over time, we can see, the time periods when the anomalies are occurring. And if I want to go and see more information about this is new to past couple of releases. This is going to give us our normal operating range. So this is the really cool chart of where hey, this is where it's normal. And then, the chart of the actual metric, so it's an area chart. And then the chart of the actual metric of, this is when it's, abnormal, right? And then it's got some other overlays there as well. All right. So this is our normal operating range. So you can see the blue area is kind of where we expect the CPU to be based on the 21-day history. And then the blue line is where the CPU actually is. And the little purple areas are when we're hitting those anomalies, right? If I roll over this, we can also see, that this roughly aligns, if you look at the chart above, of when the alerts are occurring, and allows you to be able to see, visualize kind of, was this a problem that was, building over time and then suddenly became a problem? Was it something that happened instantaneous? Again, the CPU data seems to be jumping up and down. But you can kind of see what we were expecting and what we actually got and why that caused an alert. One other thing that we can do here is we can go to the alert details, but we can also go to Performance Analyzer. This should open up another tab. And this is going to draw sort of a predefined perf stack for this data. And again, overlay more information of what's happening at that time, with this particular metric, the CPU for this particular host. So this is really great. Like you were saying earlier, this is combining a lot of the different pieces of technology that we built before, the alerting, the perf stack, all of the relationships that we build, and pulling all together, make it really easy to navigate these things and see this data.
Yeah, I love it. Perf stack is one of my favorite features in the product. So it's always nice to see it wrapped into something else.
Yeah, so you can see over here, we're giving you, this was a CPU thing, so a CPU metric that we were monitoring. So we have a lot of different CPU metrics here. And we've got response time, percent memory. And this is the status of the alert. So again, this thing would have been alerting all the time. Remember, we said it was going to be 44%. What we can see here is this chart right here is actually the anomaly. So again, both this and this have to be both anomalous and crossing the threshold in order for this to actually alert you. Again, just like typical perf stack, you can go in here. We've already got related items. So this shows you, sort of this entire stack. So if you want to do additional analysis, bam, you're right there and can add to this whatever you want. But both of these features are, really focused on reducing the noise and driving you to, where you're actually having problems and get away from just having a bunch of alerts to look at. We're really trying to focus you in on, either, down to an incident where you can see that cluster of things, or that, hey, you're really having an anomaly. This is not behaving as normal, and you need to take a look at this.
Yeah, and certainly, we've talked about it over the years, right? People create inbox rules to ignore alerts, and then they miss the really important thing. So having something like this in place where you can say it's past the threshold and it's anomalous, it really cuts all that down, takes out that annoyance that everyone has with, I'm getting all of these pings from everywhere, and none of this is important. And if it's not actionable, then maybe you don't need that. So this is just another way to address that problem, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're really excited to get these into users' hands and, basically, reduce the amount of emails coming into their inbox or alerts coming to their phone.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other features we want to talk about, like real high level, we've got integrations available to ease this path as well, right? Integration with SolarWinds Service Desk, integration with ServiceNow as a help desk. So if your teams are using those, then you can send your alerts that way instead of routing via the old email. We don't like that anyway. And then, additionally, if you want to do integrations with other things, you can use the webhook to integrate with things like Teams and Slack and insert your API webhook here. You can make it work. Thank you, Brian, for your time and for sharing this demo with us.
Oh, great. Really enjoyed sharing with you. Looking forward to feedback.
Now that we've shown you some of our integration and talked about things that we can do with alerting, let's hear from someone who's actually implemented a webhook integration. Hi, Martin. How are you today?
Yeah, not too bad. Thank you, Crystal.
Awesome. Well, can you tell me a little bit about your integration with Microsoft Teams?
Basically, we've integrated Microsoft Teams with SolarWinds so that we don't get email fatigue. We've all seen the mailboxes grow in size. We've always got that person that likes to know things, or a particular person to be working between the groups or between the disciplines.
Yeah, and managing distribution lists is certainly a pain. So I certainly understand why you want to get away from that. Why don't you show us a bit about how to configure the webhook integration? Because it seems pretty simple and straightforward.
So first of all, you select the three dots next to the channel that you wish to input the webhook onto. Then select connectors. You select incoming webhook, mutable name. So for example, this is for notifications to servers. Then put an image, for example, here a server, but you can also put a red dot or a green dot. Then once you click on create, it takes you to the next page where you can actually copy the webhook, which you'll need later on when you can actually do the configuration within SolarWinds. And then click on done, and that is it.
That's pretty simple. I remember from our previous conversations that there are extra steps now in the newer version of Microsoft Teams. It doesn't seem to add too much time, but if you could show that as well, that would be really helpful for our audience.
So again, you click on the three dots. You then select Manage Channel. You click on Edit Connectors, and then it's the same steps as before, where you type in a mutable name, upload the image that you wish, click on Create, then you get to copy the webhook, and then click on Done.
That sounds pretty straightforward. Is it as easy to use it on the SolarWinds side when you set up your alert?
Yeah, it's very straightforward. But the additional bits that you need to tell it is what sort of node type. So you add a custom field or select vendor and put it as Windows for a Windows server and Linux for a Linux server. Same when you do the reset condition as well. Once you go into the setting of the action, you simply click on Add Action, select the Send a GET or POST request to a web server. Use the URL that you get given when you create the webhook itself. You post that in there. You make sure that you select POST or HTTP POST. You write some JSON script in here to say what you wish to add, and you make sure that the content is set to application/JSON.
Well, that sounds fairly straightforward, other than the JSON bit, which is intimidating to me. But I do know that there are some examples out there already. On Thwack, for instance, there's some examples already that you can use to set this up in your own environment. That's all great. That seems like you can set this up for any alert just as simple as you would a regular email notification. You're just sending it to Teams instead. And I say simple, but again, the JSON of it means it's a little more complicated. But can you tell us a bit about why you wanted to set it up to integrate with Teams instead of simple email notifications? You talked a bit about alert fatigue or email fatigue, which I know was one of the reasons why you went this way. But what other reasons did you go towards Microsoft Teams?
As I covered before, it was very much down to people being away and the mailbox getting full up, or the action wasn't being carried out. It stayed within their mailbox, and no one would pick it up. So we we took the option to have a look at integrating SolarWinds with Teams, and we sort of created a big stack of channels that we can send notifications to, so that we can see when a particular switch goes down, when a server goes down, and what the engineers can then do is actually go to them channels and subscribe to the channels that they want to have alerts from.
A bit of self-management so that you as the SolarWinds admin aren't having to add everyone individually.
Exactly, yeah. So we're not, like you were saying, we're not having to manage distribution lists and, people self-manage.
Yeah, it seems like it would be easier for collaboration as well on getting the resolutions or like even just picking it up. I know one of the dangers of using a distribution list in an email is that if no one responds to it, then everyone just kind of assumes that someone else picked up the problem, and you can often miss things that way. With Teams, it seems like that would be a little bit less of a challenge because you can put those, put a comment in right afterwards, like, oh, I've got it, or someone can like it, or whatever you want to set up in your company.
Yeah, very much so.
What about acknowledgement? Do you guys use acknowledgement through Teams as well?
We can actually do an acknowledgement from the posting itself. So we've got the acknowledge this alert option within the actual Microsoft Teams message. But as you said, we can also post a reply to the actual message itself as well.
Yeah, this is great. I think one of my favorite things about this is that you can allow Microsoft to be kind of the manager of the maintenance as well, since there are all these channels, right? So if someone leaves the company or if they move teams and their permissions change or all of that, like that goes reflected across your Microsoft suite. So that's, to me, like reduces a lot of the maintenance as well versus like a distribution list. So would you say that it's helped reduce the time to getting people their information that they need?
Yeah, very much so, I'll say. Because people aren't relying on emails. It's all centralized. You don't have to worry about searching through email folders for a particular message that came in. We can literally do a search on the channels within this Microsoft Teams area that we've got set up.
Yeah, and we kind of glossed past it a little bit, but I think what was really great is that you have so many channels set up. So it really is that kind of self-serve notion of like, well, like you said, they get to subscribe to which channels that they care about. I think that is awesome as far as maintenance goes. I've been building alerts for a really long time and having to like, oh, well, we need this alert. Now they can go and kind of say, oh, well, I care about firewalls, but I don't need the information or whatever. So they can kind of split up their attention so they're not getting inundated.
Very much so. For example, we've got a channel set up for the firewalls if they go up or down. But we also got a channel set up so that an alert goes to there when the status of the firewall changes from being a primary to a secondary. And that's all the information as well. So yeah, it can be very much focused down to a particular team, to either our security team or to our networks team.
Well, that's really exciting. I think the big question, I guess, after this conversation we've already had is, how did you go about getting stakeholder buy-in to set this up so that they would be using Microsoft Teams, right? Like you mentioned several different teams, networking and servers and all of that. Like, how do you make sure that they're going to actually be using the Teams channels versus what they might have been used to in the past?
Yeah, certainly. In general, we've got the majority of the teams now involved with the Microsoft Teams side of things. Servers find it, or the system team specifically, like the Microsoft Teams messaging side aspects. Other teams are following suit as they move away from the emails and notification.
Well, this has been really enlightening. Thank you so much, Martin, for sharing your setup with us. It gets a nice showcase, a real world example of people using the Microsoft Teams integration through the webhook and how useful that can be. I think that it's really helpful for people out there who might be looking into something similar.
Yes, thank you. And by all means, contact me on Slack if you require any assistance with this.
Thank you so much for offering your help and mentioning Thwack. We will be sharing these resources on Thwack. Martin's going to upload some things, and we'll share those and the resources links with you all. There are some JSON examples for already out there, so we'll make sure we share that with you if you're interested in looking into the webhook integration.